Hello and welcome to the Sacral Circle, where we are healing sexual trauma collectively and lovingly. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and I'll be interviewing individuals from all walks of life who have had to face a sexual tragedy or abuse in one form or another and triumphed over their adversity. On every episode, a guest will deliver inspirational support, words of comfort, and empowering healing advice. They'll courageously share how their experiences impacted their lives and what led them to face and conquer the blockages that kept them from fully reconnecting to their inner power and divine sacredness. Be sure to subscribe to my podcast, The Sacral Circle. Just search Sacred Stories on iTunes. I want to thank our listeners for joining us today on The Sacral Circle, the self-love haven where we leave judgment at the door. And today, I'm very grateful to have my guest, Charles Bailey. He is a certified anger management specialist, and he had an extremely toxic childhood. He dealt with different forms of abuse and was in and out of foster care. And he helps individuals, particularly men, who are healing from anger and rage and sadness that they haven't been able to properly processed, but he also helps women and couples who are looking to have healthy relationships. Thank you so much for being with us today, Charles.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you grew up?
Well, I was born in Corpus Christi. I lived all over Texas. The majority of my childhood up to about 10, 11 years old was in Pampa, Texas. In that time, until we moved from there to, I don't know, many places. I can't remember them all. I was in and out of several foster homes. One of them was just a block from the house I lived at, so that was really confusing because I could just walk home, but I couldn't go home.
And how did that come to be? Like, why is it that you were taken from your mother? And was your father in the picture?
He was there till about 5 years old was the last time I remember him. But any time before that, all I remember are certain things that a child shouldn't remember. But a majority of it was my parents arguing all the time, just chaos and drama and trauma. It was, and you know, they were both alcoholics and drug addicts. So that was a part of the chaos in the house. So I didn't see him again until I was like 21, 22, but, so he wasn't there, but I was in and out of foster homes, and I only had one foster home that was really good, but the others were situations where I really felt unsafe a majority of the time. I was never really treated very well, and a lot of it I blacked out. My sister, you know, she was in some of these foster homes with me and sometimes not, but she would remind me of situations we went through in and out of the foster homes that I blacked out, and then when she would tell me, I would remember. First swimming lesson was being thrown into the deep end of the pool and them telling me, don't be a pussy, learn to swim. And so, yeah, I'm screaming and people are watching, and it was just very shaming. And I thought I was going to die.
You were how old when that happened?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay.
It's really a blur. I remember bits and pieces from childhood, but there's no timeline.
Gotcha.
It all kinds of, it jumps around. And even when we were with my mom, we would be dropped off at these random places where I don't really remember the people. It's all kind of blurry, but I remember the situations. And one place, my sister reminded me, do you remember that place she dropped us off? And we slept there, and we woke up in the middle of the night just covered with just hundreds of bugs everywhere. You know, that's the kind of stuff we dealt with. There wasn't a lot of good to it, but I got through it through, I mean, I kind of call it Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn kind of thinking. I made everything kind of an adventure, and things that didn't work into that plan of trying to get by, I blocked out, or I thought I blocked them out.
Right.
Although I found out later in life that they were still there. They don't just go away. You can't get rid of situations like that. You may put them away for a while, but they will resurface in certain situations.
Right.
You know, I have some rarely good experiences from childhood, but I didn't like going to school. I felt socially unaccepted. I felt awkward. I didn't know how to interact with other children. I would hide instead of going to school. But I went to so many different schools that I never felt comfortable anyway. I never really got the chance to know anybody until we moved to, I guess, Beeville.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how I ended up in the South Texas Children's Home, and they call that Stitch, in Pettis, Texas. And I was there for 2 years. And it was a good place, but I hated it. I mean, they had everything that you would want. They had a swimming pool, they had a gym, they had a farm, they had healthy interactions, but they didn't have necessarily healthy, what they call house parents. The people we were with were very cruel, very angry and mean, and old as dirt. I mean, they were just old people and didn't have a lot of tolerance. The first week I was there, I was throwing up the entire week, and I got no sympathy at all. In fact, I had to clean up my own vomit. They would tell me, go clean it up. Yeah. And they would tell us we're there because our parents are bad people. It was just very shaming. I got by at that time, though. I mean, there's a lot of little things that happen in between. The only foster home I had before the South Texas Children's Home that was good was with Robert and Diana Wilson. He's actually the man that taught me how to play chess. He was a police officer, and I don't remember the towns. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
The only one I remember was Kansas, Texas, and that was one that was a block from my house. But when I was at the children's home, they ended up being house parents there, but I wasn't lucky enough to be under their care. I was with, I can't even remember their names. The only thing that was really good about that place is that lady could cook. I mean, breakfast hit the table warm, and it was all homemade stuff. I mean, that's the only thing that was good about it. But her food was amazing, and that old man was just old, but just tough as hell. I mean, old school cowboy. I even ran away from there at one point with me and a friend of mine. We got to Beeville. I don't know what we were going to do, but we immediately got picked up by the police and then taken back. It was a 13-mile bike ride just to get caught immediately. But for me, most of that stuff was mainly an adventure, and I just kind of went with the flow of what was going on. I didn't have a choice. My entire life, my entire childhood was going with the flow, either being invisible so I didn't get my ass beat, or being the filter for peace so I didn't get my ass beat. I didn't have a lot of identity. I didn't know who I was. And I didn't have a voice. I didn't know how to speak up. I ended up back in Beeville with my mother about my freshman year. That was right out of the children's home. My sister hated my mother. She didn't want to be there. She rebelled. She ran away. But I was always the one that took care of my mother, even though she was never really there. I would go to my friends' houses and they were doing chores. And I'd be like, well, what are y'all doing? Like, I had no structure. I bought my first car. I bought my own clothes. I went to school when I wanted to, making my own food. I mean, she was there, but she wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And when she was there, between her and one of many stepfathers, they were just arguing. I slept in my car one night just so I could get some sleep. It was just not good memories. And one year I bought clothes for school, and she said, well, you bought too many clothes. You need to take them back and pay me rent. I bought 3 pairs of pants and 3 shirts and shoes and socks, and that was too much, obviously. I hung around with bad influences. Yeah. All we did was party, drink, get drunk. and not that it's any different, but we look for, women on the weekends. Yes. It was what I had available.
You were in this perpetual state of abuse, no real sense of safety. At some point, on top of all of that, at a really young age too, you endured some odd sexual advances.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of Quentin Tarantino this. When I was in Three Rivers for a little while, which was not a healthy place. That was 5th grade. I was in George West too, Corpus, San Antonio. I bounced around. Tyler. My mom went to the store. I remember this point on the way over there. My mom went to the store and she used me as a shield to steal meat, to steal food, which I kind of get that. If you need to feed your kids, but you don't use your kids to do that. Right. You do what you got to do, but you don't use your kids. And it was very confusing because a couple of years before that, when super glue was first put on the shelves, I stole some of it. I didn't know how this stuff worked. I just saw the commercials. And I got my hand glued together, and I had to admit what happened. I got my ass beat for that. I got taken back to the store. They figured out how to take my fingers apart. But then a couple of years later, she's shielding me, using me as a shield to steal stuff. It's very confusing Like, I get in trouble for doing it, but it's okay if you use me for that. So I just felt like I was useful when people were using me. You know, the stepfather I had, I can't remember his name, but my mother and him were in a fight at one point. I was crying and screaming because it was traumatic, and he picked me up off the ground by my hair, told me to stop crying. Yeah, that really helped. I mean, there's a lot of things that occurred in my childhood like that are just kind of flooding me now. But, you know, if my children had ever had to deal with this, it would kill me. And it just became normal dealing with that kind of stuff. And this leads to like some of the sexual things that occurred. When we were in Three Rivers, I lived there with my older brother, which I really don't know him. He got tired of the family drama and just bailed. And he's my half brother. So I didn't have a man in my life to explain what I was going through when I was hitting puberty. You know, when things were starting to occur. And of course, you know, you figure that new toy out and you use it, but you're kind of ashamed because you don't know what's going on. It's not being explained to you. Mm-hmm. My sister asked me one time, and what I heard was not what she said, and I felt complete shame and embarrassment, but I realized after the fact what she did say. She said, "Have you been playing with the clock?" I didn't hear that. I heard something else. And I'm like freaking out, like, wait, are people watching? How do they know?
Wow.
And things occurred before that. You know, one of my older sisters flashing me her boobs, saying, "You got to get used to seeing that kind of stuff." So, I mean, I had to figure things out for myself. I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was a freak. When I started to grow hair in places that weren't normal, I thought I was a weirdo.
Right.
I didn't even go play football. I didn't even go play football my first opportunity because I thought something was wrong with me because we had to do physicals. So I just didn't go because I thought I was weird. But, you know, that was around the time frame of Three Rivers with my sister doing that. But before that, when I was younger, I think I was like 4 or 5 years old, and some girl wanted to look in my shorts, you know, and obviously I was old enough to get an erection. And I'm just frozen there while she does her thing, and I didn't know what to do. And she didn't touch me or anything. She just looked and commented.
How old was she?
And then I don't remember. It's a blur. She was older than me, though.
Yes.
But even when I lived in Pampa, there were girls there that some things are just coming back to me. One of my neighbors, one of my friends, his sister, and see, it's just when sexual things came up, I didn't know how to react to them. They were just weird because you're a child, for one thing. But I had to be 8 or 9 when this one occurred, and you know, his sister was over at the house, and she was older than me, and we had a typewriter, and she typed the letter F on her middle finger and looked at me real weird. I'm like, this is strange. This is not right. This isn't normal. I just felt uncomfortable. And one of my babysitters, she wanted to give me a bath. I was around 9 or 10 at that time, though. She wanted to give me a bath, and I'm in there taking a bath, and she's peeking in the window. You know, it's just.
Gosh.
I mean, I'm in situations where I'm hearing my mom talk sexually to other people, and me and my sister in the backseat of the car. You know, it was a lot, and you don't know that that's not normal as a child. I mean, I never really had any issues with sex in any strange ways. You know, not ever thinking about forcing myself on a woman or doing anything out of the normal. But even when I would have, you know, me and my friends would go out and we'd have a hookup, I would feel this deep amount of shame after I had sex with a girl. It just felt wrong because there was no connection there. It was draining. But
at the same time, you were still promiscuous, and that's
what my friends were doing.
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? I mean, that's kind of what gets ingrained in guys is like conquering women, and you were exposed to a lot of older girls or women that were acting inappropriate with you, and your sister saying odd things like this that you were exposed to, which to some degree even hypersexualized you. And so it's interesting that you were feeling shame after every sexual experience. At what point in your life did you realize that all this that you went through as a child and as a teenager, that it was impacting you as an adult?
Well, it's the last 5 years. My relationship with my wife was always disappointing. I thought as a man I was supposed to try harder and do more, and the failure was on me. From the beginning, you know, she did things that I should have just never been with her. But the last 5 years, I kind of woke up, and she would always push my buttons, and I would explode. I'd never hit my wife or kids, but I would put my fist through a door, you know, or a wall because of that. And so I'm going to flash back a little bit. Back at 11, I got into physical fitness. That's all I had. If I could look good, then I was good. And it was really Easter egg kind of coding, you know. I didn't have any real insides, but if my outside looked good, that validated who I was. And I took that really seriously. My clothes were always ironed, my hair, the way I was built. I would run 8 miles a day. I would work out. That's all I had, and that's what got me by. But it was just a coating for emptiness. And in my relationship with my wife.
How old were you when you got married?
I was about 20. We were together 31 years. Well, we would have been together 31 years. When the divorce was finalized, it was a little over 30 years. So it's only been a few months since I've been out of the relationship completely, where she can't and doesn't bother me.
What has life been like since, and what have you come to understand about how and why you attracted this relationship?
I realized it was programming from childhood. It was going to be every relationship. Like at one point in the relationship, I had already taken anger management, but I was suicidal. I didn't want to live, but I literally, and this sounds like a joke, but I didn't have enough self-esteem to kill myself. I think it takes a lot of balls to do that, and I didn't have it. And I wanted to be dead, and I'm in this limbo of darkness. I know what it feels like to be there, but I'm not the guy that's ever going to do that. Even if I feel it, I'm gonna work my way through it somehow. But that's when I realized every relationship I had was exactly the same. About half the relationship was these women just loving all the love I gave them, and then the other half just controlling me, and I never understood it. And the last few years, I've realized where all this comes from. First, I'm hating my wife and her family for the way they treated me, because they called me white trash, trailer trash,
Mm-hmm.
They're just shaming people. The anger management was working for me. I wasn't letting her push my buttons, but the better I got, the worse she got. Towards the end, I was no longer interested in having intimacy with her because of the way she would talk to me, the way she would treat me. Nobody wants to be intimate. That intimacy requires vulnerability, and she wasn't allowing vulnerability to be there. My heart did not trust her anymore. And I think the most traumatic thing I've ever dealt with was her saying that God said, you have to have sex with me. It's in the Bible. And I'm like, that's not what that means, because sometimes things just don't function, and sometimes things quit functioning. So at that point in life, what do? It's like, that's not the intention of it. She tried to guilt and shame me on every level, even using the Bible, religion, as a bypass for spirituality to judge and condemn, but when she wasn't walking the path.
That's very traumatic. I mean, that totally leaves like mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual wounds on a person.
And it got to a point where I'm just like, I'm done with this, and it's been a process of, kind of first hating myself, and then hating her, and then realizing it all comes from my mother, and hating my mother from my childhood because I didn't deserve that. No child deserved that. And then realizing all this is just a projection of what's inside of me, and I need to forgive myself. And once I do that, none of this will matter anymore. And the only way for me to get past that is to release that anger, that pain. I had no control over it,
Mm-hmm.
In my entire life, literally walking around as if I'm drunk in this delusion of validating myself through service, pleasing others. Because if I could make them feel good and do good things for them, that made me valuable, instead of loving myself directly, which that's what everybody should do. You should be the most important person in your life. Your happiness should count first, because if you don't know how to do those things for yourself, nobody else is going to do it for you. You are teaching people how to treat you by the way you treat yourself.
Yes. And that's a hard pill for people to swallow sometime, is this part of that walk, even though it was not your fault that happened to you as a child. As an adult, you can take accountability and responsibility for what you're going to do with that pain. And if you keep it inside and keep ignoring it, it's going to cause more pain and suffering for you as well as others. It takes a lot of vulnerability and humility and a lot of courage to do what is best for your soul. And more men need to get comfortable seeking help. And how did you feel like when you went to anger management? And I know that you went through that course, and then you were so inspired that you decided to get your certification as a specialist. And now you are helping men and women, but I know that your passion is to help men find that balance, because we talk a lot about toxic masculinity right now with everything that's going on, sexual harassment, sexual abuse, all this stuff. And there's just so much healing that needs to take place between the genders for a wide variety of things. But I think, being that it is at the surface right now, and it's a sensitive subject matter, that you coming out really gives permission for other people to do the same. Men have been gravitating towards you and really responding with this message. I was talking about how there's the toxic masculinity where they're overly machismo, and then you have the men that somehow end up losing their sense of self, and you're trying to help men find that balance, which is what you're currently doing even for yourself.
Well, this brings up several points. First of all, we didn't know we were drinking the Kool-Aid as children. So if you go out and you get drunk, you're going to do things you're not completely aware of, but you're going to do them because that's what's inside of you. Getting drunk allows you to release certain things and be release what's truly inside of you. So I realized my entire life I was drunk, because they bottle fed me the Kool-Aid. You're not coherent of what you're doing because the programming has taken over. And then when you wake up, it's like getting sober. And you have to be responsible for the things you've done. Even though the programming is there, once you realize the pain you've caused and the pain you've caused others and yourself, you have to be responsible for it, or else you're never going to heal. You have to take accountability. It's like nobody can say they made me do it, even though you have triggers that people can manipulate. Those are your triggers to deal with. And it sounds kind of maybe cruel, but once you realize what those triggers are, you have a responsibility to figure out where they come from so that you can be better, and that's where I realized the difference between beta male and alpha male and what I believed I was. And I was a beta male my entire life. I was the yes man for everybody. I was the people pleaser, and I didn't have a role model that showed me, told me, and helped me evaluate what I was going through so that every day wasn't a beta test. And so for men that I talk to and I help explain, but because for men, we want to be the best at what we do, and we're going to go with the knowledge and experience we have and put that into action. And if we don't have example, education, and experience and evaluation of this through a role model, then we don't know what we're doing. That the combination for success is not there. So for me to be with somebody like her, you think it's pathetic to say I'm abused, but it's really not, because you were naive. Something inside of you said, I got to do more for this woman because it's all on me, because that's how men think. It's all on me. I got to make it better. I got to man up and make it better. But you obviously had situations that she knew she could hurt you, manipulate you, and get you into situations where she owned you, literally possessed you on some level, enmeshment. When you wake up from that, and realize that you were a good man, you tried harder, you did more, and it was never good enough for this person. You have to understand that ability to change and do for others is actually a superpower. You just have to now focus on you so that you can find your trueness, your authentic, genuine version of who you are. And for some people like me, I was never that. And now I'm really starting to just now get to know myself.
Yeah.
The last therapist we went to that was actually really good, I went to individual counseling with her, and she asked me one day, what is Charles like? What does Charles want to do? And my response was, who's Charles? And it's not uncommon. If you're asking yourself that question and you're in a relationship where you're not happy, but you keep trying harder and harder, they're stealing your identity. They're stealing your autonomy, but you're allowing it also just because you were programmed by being bottle fed with that Kool-Aid as an infant. Wake up and get out. And it's going to be one of the hardest things you do. You're going to detox like you're coming off of heroin. It's going to hurt, and you're going to want to go back. But make it a reality choice. Write down the good, the bad, the right, the wrong, the plus and the minus, and follow the path that is best for you. And don't lie to yourself. Don't think about it with your heart, and don't let your mind make the decision. Let the history, the data, and the facts tell you where you need to go. And reality sucks, but it's going to give you the best outcome until you can live a life based according to what's best for you. I mean, that's all we can do. We are here to die. We choose to live in between that. That's the one thing in life that is constant. We are here to die. You choose to live, and do not live with somebody that does not reciprocate healthiness to you. If they do not recharge you, and I'm not saying you're basing it off of them to be happy. What I'm saying is, if they're not offering what you're offering in a balanced way where that support is always there between the two of you on that back and forth, then you got to decide what's best for you and get out. You shouldn't be in a relationship that is not fulfilling. And one of the things, the first thing that really led to breaking me, I grew up and my Christmases were no good. They weren't great. I didn't have a lot of memories, and so I spoiled my kids. It was one Christmas, and it was already getting worse and worse and worse. And there's a timeline to this of half the relationship from 15 years on going downhill. But it was Christmas. I had the tree down, and I'm really not feeling it, but I'm gonna get in the mode. I'm gonna wrap the presents and do the Santa letter and all that kind of stuff. But I'm already feeling myself fade away. And I come down, and she's at the door, and the kids are in the car, and she says, "Well, you don't deserve love and respect, so I'm leaving." And I just laid down by the tree and cried. Like it hurt my soul when she said that, because I grew up feeling like I didn't deserve love and respect. And then the person that's supposed to be the most important person in my life said that to me. Healthy people don't do that to you. And that's just one of many. She got better and better at saying the most hurtful things I've ever heard in my life. But after a while, it was just impressive that you could actually dig deeper in that evil purse of yours and pull out something even worse than last time. You do not deserve to be emotionally, especially if it's physical abuse, just get out. But if it's emotional abuse, you don't deserve to be talked to like that. You're not responsible for somebody's other mental well-being. You can't make them better. We went to many counselors, and one said, "Well, she's borderline personality, and I'll treat you as a couple, but I won't treat her individually. It's a waste of time." And I'm like, "Well, then this isn't going to work, because you need individual therapy also. You can't just treat the couple. The couple's not the problem. The individuals that bring it together are the problem." The last therapist we went to that was actually decent, because she would actually interview them, and she would tell her story ahead of time, and then I'd have to go in and actually get them to see the facts of what was actually going on, Mm-hmm. And one therapist was focusing on her one day, really, really hardcore. And we left there, and she said, "I don't like that therapist. She focused on me too much today." And I'm like, "Well, I told her I'm tired of being three people in a room all focusing on me. One day you need to focus on you too."
She just wasn't ready for that kind of transparency. She wasn't ready for that kind of accountability and responsibility, or she wasn't wanting to face her own trauma. She just put it all on you, which is oftentimes what these individuals will do. I always tell people our pain, we can use it for purpose. And I know you help people understand where their anger comes from and how to properly process heavy emotions and learn how to overcome it and learn how to have, self-control. The other part of it is teaching people how to have healthy relationships and how to have effective communication. But you've really dove deep into the understanding of the narcissist. And this has been really beneficial because you meet a lot of people and some of the clients that you work with, you help them understand this. And isn't it interesting to see how many people are actually in this dynamic?
At first, I thought it was maybe just the path I was walking, but now I'm finding out that it's just not that uncommon. I think there are more unhealthy than healthy people in the world today. Mm-hmm. So to run into someone going through it is no surprise to me. Mm-hmm. And those are the only ones I'm really deep conversation with. The others that are on the other end of it, that are the ones that are doing the abuse, I can tell who they are from the beginning. They say certain things, they do certain things, they act a certain way. But for the men that I talk to, every guy that I talk to about this, they absorb it. They get excited about it. They want to know more. Every man that I talk to wants to be the best version of himself. They've just never been giving access to that information, that example, that evaluation, those three things that lead you to being genuine, authentic. Mm-hmm. We've gone from a man of few words to guys being extremely emotional and trying to figure out how to be in a relationship with a woman while they're acting like women. And you can't put two emotional beings together and have an outcome that's going to be positive. And, atypically speaking, women are better at arguing. For guys, I teach them, we are here to conflict resolve. If you're going to be a leader, you set a standard and you don't argue, because when you're arguing, neither one of you are listening to the other person. And I see these books, How to Argue and Win. There's nobody that wins in an argument. It's a contradiction. It's like jumbo shrimp. That makes no sense, Mm-hmm. So you conflict resolve. And if you're in the middle of an argument, I teach them to walk away, come back later when this person wants to actually have a conversation that can lead to either an outcome that benefits them both or a compromise that doesn't compromise the integrity of their independence and autonomy. Like this year we're going to go to either Disney in California or Florida. That's a compromise. but not a compromise that makes me change who I am so that you can be better.
Right.
If I'm not doing, if we don't work together, I can't change myself for you to be better, because that's a setup for failure. If you're depending on another person to make you a better person, then it's never going to happen. It's never going to stick, because we fail ourselves on a daily basis. You know, we have enough time getting our own stuff together. We can't be that savior for that other person. It just doesn't work like that. My ex-wife would say things that I just didn't understand, but I knew they didn't make sense. Like, if you could just love me better, I could be better. And I'm like, I don't know how am I supposed to do that? I'm trying to figure myself out right now. How do I love you better when everything that I do absolutely does not matter? I would do everything she wanted. Sometimes I would do it ahead of time, on time. It was either the wrong way, wrong time, not efficient enough, never should have been that way, you know, which was the top one for me. It's not about that anymore. I would do everything she wanted. And I knew when I did it right, because she would say, it's not about that anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, I did it right, but now you're just going to discount it. You know, I realized I had issues from childhood that I thought I had put away, that I didn't deal with, but they surfaced before she moved out, and in the separation divorce process, I realized I had abandonment issues, I had authority figure issues, and I had an attachment to material possessions. Because when we moved from Pampa to, I think it was Tyler, I didn't get to take any of my stuff with me. Every time we moved, I lost absolutely everything, you know, so stuff was important to me, but on an emotional level.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that you actually struggled with to some degree, because you were constantly having to move and leave your stuff behind. The line of work that you ended up going into,
which was eBay.
Exactly. Selling on eBay, and had a really successful business. But obviously you carry inventory, you buy things, and before you knew it, you realized you had all this stuff.
Yeah, I was like the Liam Neeson of selling. I have a particular set of skills. I will find it and I will sell it. But I was too good at finding it. I network with people, I make friends with people, they give me deals, and I come up with a truckload of stuff that would cover me for several weeks. But then I would do that every day. Towards the end of my relationship, I had absolutely nothing, and that gave me a sense of worth. Going out and having those little accomplishments of finding something that I can take from buying it for $5 and selling it for, say, $300, that added value to my life.
Interesting. So you found another way to fill the hole, to fill the void.
We fill that void in different ways. Everybody fills it in different ways. Some people can fill it through fighting, gambling, porn addiction, promiscuous behavior. It's that hole that you have to realize, where does that hole come from? Because those things are not healthy, and they don't lead to a filling outcome. It was destroying me too, though, because there was just too much.
Yeah.
And then when we were in child support court and I had custody of the kids, she went there and she lied. I mean, she just lied. This Christian, godly woman just lied, flat out lied. I'm looking at her and I didn't take an attorney because I'm taking a child support court. It just goes by the numbers, and that was a mistake. You always take an attorney against somebody like that, because they're going to be dramatic. And when I left there, I had already taken one course of anger management. But when I left there, I realized I felt like a 5-year-old to all these people, the judge, the attorneys. You know, I felt like CPS was going to come in and take me away from my mom again. I left there shaking. And I realized I was going against the inner child by trying to fight back and speak my mind, but I couldn't speak it effectively. Because how does a 5-year-old talk to a judge and an attorney in a way that says, well, they're actually going to listen to me? And so I left there and I went back to anger management. I took the course again because I'm like, I still have anger issues. And then from there, I took it again to become certified in teaching. And the best way to learn is to teach. And for me, that's what I love to do, because I'm still trying to find myself, and I'll be doing that until I die. And I do it through the teaching experience because I learn from doing that.
Exactly. And that's why it's so beautiful when somebody can use their own personal testimony and then it inspires them to go down a path where then you can help others that have been through what you've been through.
And you got to figure out for yourself what it is to be a man, but don't let people walk all over you. You pick your battles. You know, if you can walk away from a conflict, walk away from it, unless it's important. But most of the time, it's just somebody projecting their problems onto you. You know, once anger management really started to kick in with me, I rarely get mad in traffic anymore. Although sometimes when somebody almost kills me, I get a little I get a little frustrated.
Right.
But other than that, it just doesn't stick very long, where it can ruin a whole day.
Right. You're becoming more mindful.
Yeah, you have been very beneficial for me, because I know, oh my gosh, when she left, what you're going through is what you're going to talk about, and I pretty much ear raped way too many people with my drama, my trauma, my heartache, my pain. It was always all about her, and I can't believe the amount of people I told this painful story to. And it's not that I don't talk about it today, but it's not like it was before. It was an addiction to talk about it before.
Is there any last words that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, there's so much, but I guess it would be true to yourself and trust your gut. And if you're in a moment where you feel uncomfortable, get out of that moment. Don't do anything that lowers your self-esteem. Don't do anything for other people that you truly don't want to do genuinely. Mm-hmm. Don't try to validate yourself through other people. Your happiness counts first, and you have to figure out where the triggers are coming from and remove those triggers. And that would be through, a good counselor, therapist, and being honest with yourself. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you can't be emotionally abused by a woman. It happens more often than you think. It doesn't make you weak or pathetic. It just makes you somebody that has some naive thinking with manipulation, that she can manipulate your past to get you to a point in the present to where she owns you. Nobody deserves to be abused. Healthy people lose their temper, but healthy people don't say things to you that are going to be hurtful to your soul. Unhealthy people will not ever validate an apology and change. Healthy people may lose their temper, but they're not going to say something to you that is it's going to break your soul. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't happen. So if they're doing these things that are just flat out mean, you're not with a healthy person, and you're not responsible for their well-being. You are responsible for you.
I really appreciate all that you shared today. And I think, that was beautifully said at the end. So much great stuff that we can take from today. If there are individuals who are interested in reaching out and getting in touch with you, can you please share your information?
Yeah, they can contact me by email or phone. My email is deathofbeta102@gmail.com, and that's just like it sounds. It's DEATHOFBETA102@gmail.com. And my direct phone number is 210-722-8493. Contact me anytime. Well, I wanted to say something else also. Sometimes you have to walk through the muck. You have to muddle through the muck to get to where you're going. It's going to be hard work, but it's always going to be worth it. And understand that you don't have to be these men that cannot express themselves. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to have every spectrum of the emotions that are available to you and genuinely express yourself. And if you're around people that don't allow you to do that, you're around the wrong people. Don't suck it up, walk it off, rub some dirt on it. Don't let, and of course, sometimes with being a man, you do have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get it done. But you have to be genuine with what you're feeling. You have to have times where you're mindful of what you're going through, and don't just ignore that, because if you do not express it and release it in a healthy way, it's going to come out in unhealthy ways in other areas.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate too, because I know you have 3 sons and you've expressed that to them so that they know it's okay, like you said, to cry, to be angry. It's just about mindfully understanding it and processing it properly. So I want to thank you for doing your best to try to raise gentlemen. And I want to thank you for also being a gentleman who is being a way shower and creating a new paradigm for the healthy, divine masculine.
I'm doing my part to the best of my ability, and hopefully I can make at least a small difference, because that's where it starts.
Absolutely. We can all be the change we want to see in the world. Love it. Thank you so much. You're officially a part of the Sacral Circle sisterhood/brotherhood.
I appreciate that, and it's an honor to be a part of that with you.
Thank you. And thank you to our beautiful listeners for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the Sacred Stories podcast on iTunes, where you'll find other impactful, inspiring shows. Connect with me via our social media pages. You'll find us at the Sacral Circle. Your shares and likes are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. If you have any questions about my coaching and healing services, just visit my website at JanieTerrazas.com. As we say goodbye, always remember to know your worth and continue to love and value yourself wholeheartedly. Peace be with you.